Yes.
Okay, I'm doing on my iPad, which is not quite as good as the computer, but for today we'll have to do until I can get this fixed.
Yes, this is wonderful. So, hello and welcome everyone. With divine inspiration and guidance from Brahmarshi Pitamaha Patriji, Mahavatar Babaji, Ardhanarishwar energies, and the most gentle, most unconditional love of Narayani. I, Dr. Maitrey, and team welcome everyone to this first session of Sita's Yoga, Transformative Journey Within. Today, we are so blessed, so fortunate to have with us Denaji, who will be guiding us during these sessions with utmost respect, gratitude, and love. I welcome you, Denaji, for today's session. I know
Thank you. Thank
we
you.
I know we all know Denaji, but as this is the first session, please allow me to introduce her. For over 40 years, Denaji has been a student of Paramhams Yogananda ji and a practitioner of Kriya Yoga. She began working in interfaith movement in late 1990s, when she also served as a vice chair for Millennium World Peace Summit of religious and spiritual leaders at the UN. She founded Global Peace Initiative of Women in 2002. She has received the Nivano Peace Prize for her efforts in interfaith peace movement. Along with all this, we know her through her beautiful books. And I'm going to just take name of every book here. My Journey Through Time, Death and Rebirth, When the Bright Moon Rises, Rukmini and Turning of the Time, Dance with Dakinis, and of course, The Untold Story of Sita. And the latest and the current book on which these sessions are based on, Sita's Yoga, the Yoga of Awakening. I'm sure, like me, for many of us, she and her work triggered that hidden core memory of divine feminine. And we are so thankful for it, Denaji. With all my heart, I welcome you again and hand over the platform to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Dr. Maitrey, thank you so much for inviting me. I see some of my old friends here, and I'm very happy to greet everyone. And of course, today is a very special day for us to be immersing ourselves in the presence of Ram and Sita and talking about this journey, this awakening journey. I came to write this book rather unexpectedly when I returned from India last year. As I talk about in the introduction, I was actually working on another book about the future, projecting myself 200 years in the future. But I came back after speaking about Untold Story of Sita, so immersed in Sita that I had a dream in which this book came to me. And I put aside the book I was working on and began writing this book. And for nearly a year, I was just completely immersed in it. As I say, I was living in Sita Loka, which is a beautiful place to live, where I was experiencing these teachings. And, I see myself as a scribe, writing down what's transmitted to me. And the teachings are as much for me as for anyone. And as I wrote each chapter, I would have to practice it, experience it in my own life. So it begins with attunement, attuning ourselves to the divine presence within. And how do we do that? That is the question that emerges in the first book, in the first chapter of the book. The story is told, and as I say at the beginning, the first time I'm writing a story that's not my own. It's the story of another being, a woman named Devani, who was a high being who incarnated when Sita did to fulfill the last of her karma. When an avatar takes birth, or when a great soul takes birth, many advanced souls take birth at the same time to finish their earthly karma and to help fulfill the mission that avatar has come to do. And there's a lot in the book as we go through it about what that mission was, because Ravana was gone, but that wasn't the end of it. He left a lot of sort of footprints in the sand. He left a lot of thought forms that had to be countered. But this woman Devani incarnated with a sense of the presence, the internal presence, before she even met Sita, before she knew her as an external reality. She was aware of this inner presence that guided her through life. And as she says, I attuned my mind to her. I attuned my mind to her. She says again, she's throughout that first chapter, she's saying, when somebody asked her, she would collect herbs, healing herbs, and somebody asked her, how does she know where to look? She said, I attuned myself to my Devi, and then I know where to look. She says again, I tried to keep her uppermost in my mind. Now, in order to do that, there has to be a personal relationship. There can't be, how do you have a relationship with an abstraction, with an abstract form? And I think that's one of the reasons why the divine incarnates in a human form, so that it can become personal. Otherwise, the divine remains an abstraction. And so Devani knew her because she had appeared, the Devi, the internal Devi, because she had felt her presence in dreams and memory from a pre-birth memory. And she says, before making any decision, I would place my mind on her and then proceed. Before making any decision, I would place my mind on her and then proceed. Most often, a response came rather quickly, sometimes through an intuitive nod, a subtle hint indicating the direction to take. Even when I was fully engaged in earthly affairs, fulfilling my outward duties, she remained foremost in my mind. I reaped many benefits from this inner attunement. I was able to remain relatively unruffled through this practice. Now, she developed this practice when her life was relatively stable, when there was no great tragedy. But because it had become a habit, it was automatic. And when she encountered a tragedy, she was able to reconnect. And I'll read the section of the first chapter toward the end when she does encounter a tragedy. But I think the point is that if you developed the habit during easy times, then you can draw upon this habit during difficult times. And so it's a matter of where the mind is, where the consciousness is. If the consciousness is on external matters, that's where you are. But if there's always a part of you that is focused within, on the self, on the Devi, on however that appears to you, then that remains with you during challenging times. So, of course, this is something that we can't just read about, we have to practice. And ultimately, she goes through probably one of the most challenging times that a person can go through. And she said, I'll read that section. When I look back upon that period, I realized that I had to stumble through this bleakest of human experiences, the loss of a loved one, a child, no less, to reach the other side, the light of higher awareness. But I did not walk alone. She was there beside me, only I had blocked her out. When I couldn't reach her, when I couldn't see beyond the loss and loneliness that engulfed me, she came down to where I was to take my hand and lead me out of that dark alley of forgetfulness. As soon as my emotions were stable enough to feel her presence, my inner voice called out, Mata. And at that moment, she became more than a deity to me. She became Mata, the cosmic mother, and my inner attunement was reestablished. It was this inner attunement that guided me out of the bleak mental world in which I was imprisoned. What I learned from this most painful experience was not to let go of her hand, no matter what I had to encounter, not to let grief, fear, or any emotion block out the sight of her, for she was always there, ready to embrace me. Grief can be a doorway to greater awakening or to despair. It is a choice we make. I chose awakening, and as I did, the darkness began to scatter. It was only then that she meets Sita, only after she has conquered that. And I'll see if I can she has to go through that difficult challenge to her attunement. And when she comes through the other end and reestablishes her attunement, she hears Mata's voice. Mata's voice drifted to me through the fluttering leaves of memory. You must embrace fully the joy and pain, for that is the nature of human life. Know that it is the limited self who experiences the outer world. The inner self is untouched. Reside in that, and you will not know sorrow. Her presence was vibrant within me. I came to understand that one can maintain a state of non-sorrow even during the depths of sorrow. If one resides in the ever-constant calm beneath the waves of disturbances, life was unfolding as it should. So she makes peace with that. And she of course, then Mata grants her a vision of her departed daughter, and she realizes that there was a purpose to all of that. The one I loved most in the world had been taken from me, but I harbored no ill feelings because I came to understand that life was unfolding as it should. Sachi, that was her daughter, was only a child when she left us, and with her departure ended my deepest attachment. I had taken human form for nothing less than liberation, not for human love, not for sense gratification, not to fulfill any desires or aspirations, but only to rise above all limitations and to live in Mata's eternal reality. It was not until I fully embraced my grief and overcame it, not until then did she come to me. And then she describes in the next chapter how she's walking in the forest collecting herbs one day and sees Sita. And the next chapter is about transcending name and form, because she's very confused when she sees Sita, because she knows her as an inner reality, as a Devi. And then she sees her out of form, and she recognizes immediately that she's the one who's helped her throughout her life. The Devis appeared to her. And then begins her whole journey with Sita. But before she can embark on that journey, she has to establish that inner relationship and that inner attunement. And that's true for all of us. The deeper our attunement, the more we're able to access the guidance. If it's only a very kind of superficial acknowledgement, yes, the Devi's there, yes, we acknowledge her. Well, the response will be similar. In other words, as much as we put in, that's how much is returned. There's a mutuality to this relationship. And that comes through again and again in the book, the mutuality. As one directs one's mind toward the divine in whatever form is most beloved to us, Mata or Ram, that's how the divine is able to reach us. Because without that inner attunement, we're blocking out the presence. We're blocking out the presence with all the externalities, the busyness, the thoughts that keep us entertained. And so that's the work before us, is to continually reestablish that inner attunement until it's so well established that even if we go through the most difficult of times, we'll be able to regain it and step back and see the bigger picture. And so as she was establishing her reattunement, she was able to see the role this daughter had come to play in her life, and that this daughter had fulfilled that role and was now ready to move on. And then, of course, as you go through the book, there's a very beautiful story about what happens to that relationship as that child reincarnates. So I will pause here to see if there's any comments or questions, because we want this to be interactive.
Yes. So the first and foremost question is, why yoga? You have very, very clearly written each chapter's name also as yoga. Yoga of inner attunement, yoga of non-judgment. It could just simply be practice as well. So why? I'm sure that there is a deeper understanding and meaning to it. It would be really helpful for us to know.
I think that there's, so that's how the book came to me. And as I thought about it also, I realized that there are many misunderstandings about yoga. People think of yoga as just as asanas, or they think of yoga as meditation practices. But yoga is union. All that brings us into union. So all that brings us into union encompasses all of life. And I know so many people think that if they meditate, they're doing enough. Let me just spend my time in meditation, and that's all I need to do. Meditation is half the battle. The other half of the battle is how you are when you're not in meditation. How are you responding to everything that's thrown at you through the day? And this book covers as many qualities as we need to cultivate. So we need to cultivate the dharmic qualities, because by cultivating the dharmic qualities, we come into union with the higher self. We come into union with our dharma. We come into union with the divine. So what are those dharma qualities? Generosity, forgiveness, selfless acts. So it moves through the obvious ones and then into the higher ones of union with the divine. There's a chapter on the yoga of union with Ram. What is it? Let me get the exact name. I just read in my Facebook reading, the yoga of knowing Ram. That is, and then the yoga of love.
Yes.
And there's a lot in here about how these other qualities open our heart so that we can be practicing the yoga of love. But how do we open the heart to that extent? How do we practice the yoga of love? Through these other yogas, through the yoga of generosity, the yoga of forgiveness, selfless action, non-judgment, non-reaction. These are all the things yoga of remembrance, non-interference, the yoga, so many different things that help bring us into union. And so I wanted people to begin to think of yoga as life, as as all of life provides opportunities for us to practice the qualities that will bring us into union. And there's so many of those qualities. And you know, as I was writing each chapter, I would be challenged with practicing it. So example, the yoga of non-reaction. I talk about this at the end of the book. My country was going through a lot of things that was awakening a reaction in me. I was reacting, and I'm writing about the yoga of non-reaction, and I'm reacting. And so I had to do a lot of work on myself, and it helped me tremendously. The yoga of non-judgment. A lot of things that were happening, I was having judgment about. I mean, it's very easy when you think just about your personal life, not to judge other people, but when you think of the bigger picture, not to judge what looks like real evil in the world. And then it brought me into, well, how did Ram and Sita deal with Ravana without judging him? He was an epitome of a dark force, what we call evil, of negative traits, selfishness, greed, domination. How do you deal with those forces without judging and without reacting? And that's part of the journey, because as long as you're reacting, you're part of the play. You're engaging with the forces. So you want to be able to counter without fully engaging. And so that's the life journey. And so each chapter is a different aspect of how you can engage with life's journey without creating more karma and with moving closer toward the ultimate union, which we all seek.
Yes, that's so wonderful. And like you have mentioned at back of the book, that basically Sita here is also teaching us how to find that middle path, how to grow spiritually when we face these life's challenges. And like you said, meditation is just half the battle, but when you practice it in every moment, it becomes yoga, and that's so wonderful. Um, thank you so much for that. Um, for us, attunement, I actually Googled this word, checked it in dictionary, um, what it means, because we understand it, as mentally. But I believe that if we understand it from a core, by practicing it, it would get more easier. I want to ask you here that there are so many distractions in our external world, and currently, so when there's so much happening, like in such times, how do we ensure that we are still attuned to her?
There are many practices, and each person has to find what works for them. One of the practices is japa,
Okay.
where you're continually saying the name. There was a story about my own guru, Yogananda. One of the monks, when he first came on, entered the monastery, he began his practice japa. His chant was, "I love you, Guruji, I love you, Guruji, I love you, Guruji." All day long, he would be chanting, "I love you, Guruji, I love you, Guruji." And one day when he was chanting that, and he happened to meet Yogananda in the field or wherever he was, Yogananda just looked at him and said, "And I love you too." So, so to think that the divine is not aware when we're chanting whatever it is we're chanting internally, um, the divine is very aware of where our mind is and where our heart is and where our thoughts are. So, one way is to, if you can't be doing it continually, every so often bring your mind back. A simple mata, mata for Ram, Ram, however it is, whatever at that moment your heart is calling, it changes. Sometimes I chant mata, sometimes I chant Guruji, sometimes I chant Ram. It's it's just the work is trying to bring your mind when you're outside in nature, just seeing the beauty of it all and seeing it as an expression of the divine. There's so many ways that we can bring the divine into our life. That's how you establish inner attunement, by bringing the divine into your life, by having conversations, talking to the divine, talking to Mata, or whoever it is, however the divine manifests to you. So I think it's again, it's where the mind is. So how do you establish attunement? Is trying to bring your mind back and back and back and back to that consciousness.
Yes. Again and again in awareness, and chanting not with the sound of mouth, but sound of heart.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. That's
And also, for making a decision, we all have to make different decisions in life. Recognizing the response, recognizing that I called it an intuitive nod, that the divine often speaks to us through our intuition. And we have to become much more sensitive to that intuition, to that intuitive voice, because often I've heard the divine tries to reach us, but can't because we're so cluttered. There's so much clutter in there. But the more we can quiet our mind and the more we can become conscious of that intuitive voice, the more we can receive the guidance.
yes. And you mentioned that, we can understand, we can know for sure that we have that inner attunement with the intuitive voice or intuitive nod, as you mention it. Are there any other ways as well that we can know that, who are still on the practice, the start of this journey of practicing, how can we know that we are attuned to her or attuned to the higher spiritual guidance?
Again, it takes practice to recognize that inner voice,
Yes.
but you can tell whether you feel like you're in alignment. Does it feel right? Or does something seem off, or you still have uncertainty? If you have a choice to make, that's a difficult choice to make, or you're encountering a difficult situation. Um, as Devani says, I place my mind on her and then proceed. Most often, a response came rather quickly, sometimes through an intuitive nod, a subtle hint indicating the direction to take. Even when I was fully engaged in earthly affairs, fulfilling my outward duties, my mind remained on her. So even when you're fully engaged, in the back of the mind, in other words, you sort of learn to function in two worlds. You sort of learn to function outwardly fully, because that's what we're called to do, to fully fulfill our duties. But there's a part of you that's still connected, that's still observing and still watching and not fully engaged. And that's sort of a practice that we have to learn how to be both outwardly and inwardly at the same time, outward and inward at the same time. And I think, look, we don't always get it right. We may try to develop, listen to that intuitive nod and make a decision that's not. There's no decision that's a wrong decision, because we'll learn either way.
Yes.
So, one might be a little bit more challenging and harder, but basically, everything that comes to us is to help us learn and awaken. So there is no wrong decision to make, but we can choose a path that maybe will take us quicker or be easier for us to follow. But I think that they're just shortcuts and long cuts. In the end, we all get there.
Definitely. So before we go to the session time for meditation guided by you, just one more question I would like to ask is, would you like to give us a simple practice which we can be mindful of until we meet next time, so all of us can attune ourselves, as that is the goal of this first chapter. A simple practice which we can follow throughout our day, throughout our days.
Well, since this is Sita's yoga, I always say that one can focus on Sita, but it can be any of the, however the divine appears to you. It could be your guru, it could be Ram, but I'll talk about Sita. I'll talk about Mata since we're here studying her yoga. I would say before you, when you get up in the morning, when you first awaken in the morning, try to have her, invoke her. Before you go to bed at night, invoke her. And then sometime during the day, when you take a pause in your work, invoke her. So in the morning when you wake up, try to feel her presence. Mata, you're with me. Mata, I feel your presence. Sometime during the day, take a pause. Mata, I feel your presence. Mata, you are with me. Or Mata, let me feel your presence. And then as you go to sleep at night, again, Mata, let me feel your presence. Let's all practice that until we meet next and see whether we are living more in her presence.
Definitely. Thank you so much for today. And would you like us to guide in a short meditation session according to your time availability?
Yes, we had scheduled to 8:15, right? Well, the timing is so off. It's 11 in the morning for me. So it's 8:34 for you in the evening, right?
Yes.
So you had allowed for 10-minute meditation?
Yes, but if you have time, we can continue for longer time as well. Whatever your
We could
um,
do 15 minutes.
sure.
So would you like to lead it?
No, we
You
would
want me
really
to lead
love.
it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dinaji.
So let's close our eyes and invoke the presence of Sita. You try to visualize her and know that she took birth on earth to guide those souls who were ready for awakening, who had come with her to fulfill the last of their earthly karma, so that they could move up through the higher realms and abide with her in the celestial world. And before they came into birth, they invoked her and asked for her help in fulfilling the last of their karma, so that they would have no more desires or aspirations, that they would be of service to all who came to them, that they would embody her love and be an example for others. And she's asking the same of us, because our times are not so different from those times. There are negative forces at play. There were then and there are today. And how are we to embody her love? How are we to serve the higher good in our time? Strengthening our inner attunement will provide the answers. So let's sink into the silence for a few minutes as we try to feel her presence. It is love that brings the divine into the human world. And we cannot even know the extent of such a profound love. We can feel their love. Inner attunement is like opening a channel, a communication channel with Mata. And through that channel, we can feel her love and her guidance. It's like having a direct line to her. We have to keep reminding ourselves of her presence. Mata is continually trying to reach us, but we are distracted with 1,000 things. So we have to make time and open ourselves. The more we keep our mind on her throughout the day, at intervals, we keep reminding ourselves, the more we find that she's always with us, an internal presence. An internal presence. Who says, I am in you, and you are in me. In truth, she never leaves us. It is only we who leave her. The more we keep her in our mind, the more we establish that union with her. Then she can work through us, express herself through us. We become her channel to the world. As we come out of meditation, I'll read again. Before making any decision, I would place my mind on her and then proceed. Most often, a response came rather quickly, sometimes through an intuitive nod, a subtle hint indicating the direction to take. Even when I was fully engaged in earthly affairs, fulfilling my outward duties, she remained foremost in my mind. I reaped many benefits from this inner attunement. I was able to remain relatively unruffled due to this practice. So before we meet again, let us practice this inner attunement and see whether we really are able to feel her presence more powerfully as we go about our daily life.
Thank you so much for guiding us through that meditation. We are flowing with her love, and until we meet next time.
Till we meet next time. Be well.
Thank you. Deep gratitude.